This weekend interview is powered by Lululemon. Are you heading up to the Gold Coast Marathon? Lululemon is bringing together runners, crews and clubs for one of the biggest weekends on the Australian running calendar. Join them for the final race prep, recovery sessions and post-race celebrations. You can register for the clubhouse via the link in our Instagram bio or via the show notes.
Child, that your skin can bring you so much pain. Now I hear you say you got the best of both ways. Won't you come and
Okay, welcome to a weekend edition of the Inside Running Podcast. I've been given the job this week to interview Jess Stenson. I think Brady, he's got sick of talking to you. Run out of questions, and Croaks. Every time we get Croaks interview a female, he just flirts with them the whole time.
Yeah, that's good.
Been rung in. So welcome, Jess, to the podcast again.
It's good to be here. We haven't chatted, I don't think, on a podcast since it's been a while. I know we did After Perth together, but then there's probably been a couple since.
Yeah, Brady loved to. When he was a Lulu athlete, he would really jump in and he tried to look after you, but now you got me, and there's none of that going on. So, Jess, I got a quick question just to kick things off here. Now, if I went to the general public and I said to them, now this athlete is she came 13th in the Olympics, or she won a gold at the Com Games, she won Melbourne Marathon, or she's the South Australian Marathon record holder. What do you reckon they're going to be most impressed with out of those?
It's probably the Commonwealth gold if it's someone who's not heavily in the running world. Heavily in the running world, it might be more perhaps the Olympics. For me, I'd say the Olympics is the effort I'm most proud of in terms of just the whole picture. But I think the Commonwealth Games gold helped me to get to a level that enabled me to do that.
Yes. Okay. So if I was to ask you which one you're most fond of, proud of, it was the Olympics.
Yeah, I think the Olympics in terms of just the whole experience and having my whole family there in Paris, it just felt like a really big moment. The Commonwealth Games gold, I was just in shock when I crossed the line and just felt so much happiness in that moment. But I think that I didn't go into that one with much pressure or there wasn't much to lose other than the fact that I was hoping to improve on my bronze medals from prior games, whereas the Olympics, it was more difficult to stay composed, and there were points in that race where I was pretty overwhelmed by how it was all playing out, and to sort of be able to get through those moments and finish strong, I was really proud of that. And as I said, just having my entire family there was a really unique thing for me. I haven't had them all at one of my marathons before.
Yeah, and it was on TV back home at a good hour for us to watch. It was pretty cool back home. So I think a lot of people saw that. So, well, what about the World Champs? You were 9th at the World Champs, but it appears this year that there's been a lot of athletes, or several athletes selected who may not be taking their spot. How do you feel about turning down the Aussie singlet to run for a commercial opportunity?
It's a big decision. I love wearing the Australian singlet. I always have. I think it just gives that race so much meaning and purpose. And when the going gets tough, you can really draw upon that to get the most out of yourself. And that's why I think over the last, since 2012, I've really tried to make the most of every opportunity to wear the green and gold. And this year I had to weigh up a few things. the heat element was a big one. I think if I was going to World Champs, I'd be wanting to improve on that ninth place from London. And I think that would be an all-in approach where you've really got to prepare yourself well for the heat and the conditions. And I think that would involve here in Adelaide doing some humidity chamber runs, some sauna sessions, and then going to some form of camp for at least a couple of weeks. And just with the way the ages of the kids and Dylan's work at the moment, that was going to be really tough. So I didn't want to go over feeling like I hadn't prepared as well as I could have. So that was one of the big ones, because my goal going into this year was really I want to try and run the fastest marathon I can. And so I've got my sights set on that hopefully later in the year. So my decisions leading up to that are sort of with that goal in mind. And so I might be taking some time off later in the year to go overseas. And there are only so many weeks you can have away from home and family.
Yeah. So, all right, where are we then for the back half of the year? You've obviously got a big race planned, mapped out.
Yeah.
Can you tell us what you're going to be doing later this year?
I mean, there's nothing official yet, but I'd really like to do Valencia if I can. I wanted to do it last year, and I probably wasn't as well set up to go for it last year, just with the sort of race coming back to race in Daegu and then going to Paris. I feel like I would have been sort of squeezing that one in at the end. So I really hope I get the opportunity this year. It was injury that put me out last year, and that is always a risk, particularly when you're trying to do everything to get your best result out. But I still feel like I haven't got the most out of myself in the marathon yet. So that's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah. Well, there's only sort of a couple of places you can really test your potential, isn't there?
And look, you can't guarantee the conditions either. Part of me thinks like, oh, they've had it so good there for a few years now. They're probably going to have a shocking day for it, but at least to give yourself the opportunity and hope that, it works out.
Yep. What about before that? Anything closer?
So I've got a marathon planned for mid-year and 1 to 2 half marathons as well.
You're going to be staying domestic for that marathon?
Hoping to, yeah.
All right, good. Well, we got you're coming off Lonnie 2 weeks, 10 days ago now. How'd you recover from that?
Not too badly. It was a pretty cold day. I can't complain because apparently last year was a lot colder, but I felt quite stiff out there throughout the run. It was one of those races where you actually still feel cold towards the later stages. And because it was a platinum label event, they had drug testing. So we kind of crossed the line, got called for drug testing, and that was a 3-hour process just because of the one room and the one person processing it and the number of athletes they had getting tested. So my recovery was actually a bit average, because then we jumped on a plane and had to come via Melbourne. So my hammy tendon was a bit sore following, but I've had some physio on it today and went out for an afternoon run, and it's already feeling, a lot freer through there. I think it's quite low back related, so getting that work done makes a big difference.
Yeah, interesting. The 3 of our top runners, Leanne, Izzy and yourself, all hamstring issues.
It's a pretty common issue amongst long distance runners in recent years. So possibly some link to footwear and maybe the higher intensities. I'm not sure.
Yeah, no, that's a good point on the footwear. I think Tommy DeCanto chats about it on the Shoe Geeks episode we did yesterday.
Yeah, okay.
Yesterday. It could. I mean, he makes a good argument for it. 69. What were the seconds? Lonnie?
51, I think. So
69.51. Yeah.
Bit slower than Melbourne, and I think I kind of went into the race not sure what to expect. You always, I think, sort of stay open to the idea that you might be able to run a PB, but I can sort of look at it and be happy with that result still. Just the way the race panned out, and yeah, I was happy with the way I raced it and with how I felt. But I don't run that many halves, so it's always nice when you can get a PB.
And a lot of money.
Yeah. So I would have usually thought the 10 would fit quite well at this time of the year. But when, the Epic Events marketing sort of said, well, this is what we're really focusing on this year. I mean, it was an opportunity you couldn't miss. So
Yeah, so the this was actually a question Brady had. He wouldn't have asked you this himself, by the way. The women maybe only 4 to 5 elites, but he said the men had like a really deep list of elites.
Yeah.
Was there a reason for that? Did you understand why that was?
No, I didn't. Like I'd known they were bringing over one Japanese athlete and one Mongolian athlete, and I think Brett Lana, who was there, just said it was really difficult to get women to come, like the timing and the races they've got coming up. I wasn't sure because they have so many sort of women only races in Japan and men only races. Perhaps it wasn't timed well with particular trial or big race they've had in Japan. And then domestically, I think it was a bit of misfortune with various athletes out, either injury or obviously, we've got a couple of pregnant athletes coming back from having a baby. So hopefully it'll only continue to build with years to come because it was such a good setup. Like the increased funding meant that instead of supporting 20 something athletes in the hotel, they had 70 something. Like everything was just bigger and better, and it felt really professional.
Yeah, it did look good. It looked good down there. It could be the future too. That half looks like it could be really fast at some point if you get the right field on there.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep. Why don't you talk us through how you're going? Like just some session details lately, how fit you feel, and I might just pep you with a few questions around that.
Yeah, I feel like I've got a good base at the moment. So after, I think, when was the Tokyo Marathon? It was either late Feb or early March. I can't remember the exact date, but after that, I sort of took a few weeks to recover, had a 10K race 2 weeks after, but that was kind of thrown in without a lot of heavy training around it. So I felt like I had a good opportunity to recover from that race. I was building up towards the Ballarat half, actually, and that's when we had we caught the flu just after Dill's national 1500 race over in Perth. We were meant to go to Margaret River. I think you know that part of the world pretty well. Beautiful place. And I was literally in bed with the shakes and body aches the whole trip. It was pretty average. So that was a whole week with no training and then a week of just getting back into jogging. And then, that disrupted the block a bit. So I ended up not racing Ballarat. Had a good month of training, but pretty just general training, I'd say, in the lead up to Launceston. And when the gun fired, that's probably what I noticed. And the cold maybe contributed too, but I remember looking down at the first split thinking, oh, that felt quite quick. And it was a 3:16. And I was like, oh, my perception's out here. I just haven't been exposed to much longer work at that pace. I've been doing a lot of threshold work, and it's interesting listening to you boys chatting about the approach with the double threshold days and a lot of threshold running. And I think people can still run some really good halves and tens off that. But for me, I find I do need exposure at those quicker speeds because I didn't come from a speed background, or it's almost like the alarm systems go off internally and say, like, you're not going to be able to sustain this. And I fall back into that rhythm. So I think before my next half, I really need to just spend a bit more time in that sub-marathon pace, sub-threshold zone.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you bring that up because it was sort of one of my questions is that what is, it's hard to ignore the double threshold, the success. It makes a lot of sense, particularly for someone who's getting a bit older in their marathoning career and like not doing a lot of shorter distance running, like the ability to be able to run more intense miles safely Is it something that you've talked about with Adam that you would be interested in?
Yeah, I mean, I probably naturally it's my session sort of the way a week is structured at the moment would be Tuesday I might do 8x1K reps, or 3x3K is one we've been doing recently, and it's all around like 9:58 down to like 9:53, getting a little bit quicker each one, which is just under 3:20s. And then come Friday I'm doing a fartlek of some form, and gradually increases in distance. So eventually in a marathon block you get up to 21 Ks, but you maybe 3:17s for the ons and 3:35s for the offs or something. So it might average out at 3:24-ish. So I'm probably almost like doing that. If you look at what my true threshold is anyway, my sessions aren't much more intense than threshold pace in like on an average.
Yeah.
But I don't know how it works when it's a fartlek, so you're actually going faster and slower than that.
I think the idea is that added stress of like a long continuous run is something to be avoided or to be concerned with.
So it would be, instead of like the 20K fartlek, you might do 2 threshold sessions in that one day.
Yeah, you do 10 by 2K, or like the first session might be 5 by 2K and then 10 by a K in the other.
Yeah, okay.
But one of the good things is like you can do the Ks a little quicker because it's like not a long duration of time. So like you might do your 2K. I mean, I don't do it. This is just sort of how I'm framing it up in my mind. But say it's like a 2K rep. So it might be you might do them at 3:35s or something that's below like or 3:30s, where the lactate's quite low. And then in the afternoon you might do 10 by K at 3:15s.
Yeah.
So you're getting a bit of fast stuff in, but you're also getting a lot of volume in. That's
it's certainly not a very parent-friendly approach.
no way.
Listening to this thing is so good in theory, but I cannot see how that would work out.
Not a chance. Nah.
It's only if I'm running still in like 10 years' time, when the kids are a bit older, might be able to give that approach a go, try and prolong the career.
The ultimate destination for the Gold Coast Marathon weekend is the Lululemon Clubhouse, and it's happening at the QT Hotel from July 4th to 6th. Throughout the race weekend, Lululemon is hosting 3 daily events at the QT with no pre-registration required. Starting from 9 a.m. each day on the ground floor, a pop-up shop will offer last-minute race essentials, running accessories, and performance wear. On the QT rooftop, you can find 2 experiences. From 9 a.m, the Rise and Recover space with Ambassador Ben Seymour and recovery tools like compression boots and massage guns. From 10 a.m, a customization hub will be available to create personalized commemorative items. In addition to this, there are some events with limited capacity, so registration is essential. They include shakeout runs on both Friday and Saturday, along with mobility and mindfulness that will help you tune in, loosen up, and get race day ready from the inside out. These will be led by Lululemon Ambassador Ryan Mannix. The session blends fluid movement with intentional breath work to support your body and mind through every stage of the weekend journey. On Sunday, you can attend a live recording with us as Inside Running Podcast goes live from 1:30pm to 3pm in the QT Ballroom with a big recap of the race weekend, special guest and post-marathon discussions. Following that, from 3 to 5pm, a post-race celebration will be held on the QT rooftop. This event is for all racers and supporters to reflect on the weekend with food, drinks, photo opportunities, and custom keepsakes. More details are in the link in our Instagram bio or in the show notes.
I have written a question down here that's perfect for that little segue. Do you reckon that if you took the route of career-focused professional runner, held off on kids till way later, decided to live the training camp life, would you be a better runner than you are now? Would you have run faster times, had better results?
I don't think so. Where I think that would be valuable though is altitude training camps, because I do feel like I benefit a lot from altitude, and by not living that lifestyle, you're restricted to either trying to somehow sleep in a tent at
Mm.
home, or pay for the whole family to go on a training camp and disrupt your partner's work. So I think, I'd possibly have faster PBs and some better results in little pockets where I'm able to get away to a training camp. But on a day to day basis, I think having that well rounded approach is better for me, for my mental sort of well being and sense of who I am and why I'm running. I think, the other approach, I could get in my head a bit too much and wonder what it's all for.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to ever imagine not having kids and not thinking that that would be a good thing. But don't you sometimes look at this, like the single athlete who's in St. Moritz for 6 months, and then you go, "Oh, that! Imagine how good it would feel to wake up at 9:30 and go for a
Yeah.
jog."
The thing is, you never know how good that is until you've had kids. Like, I could have told myself that back then, like, oh gee, you're living it up. Like Dylan and I, at the end of 2018, we were in Hilversum, where Susan Crummins and her husband live, and we were kind of living that lifestyle for, it was nearly 8 weeks, and I was really not enjoying my running on my own, just getting up and having to motivate myself with no training partners around. And
Mm.
I actually found it really tough, because I could be going about the pro athlete life here, but no, I'd have no one to train with at 9:30, so it'd be a pretty lonely.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's. I mean, I think you're right. I think there's a certain personality that it would probably work for, and then there's other personalities that need a little bit more um, uh, outside focus or distraction.
Yeah,
Um,
and you only know what you're capable of when you're doing it, when you're sort of running prior to kids. Like, life feels busy and it feels like you've got a lot of commitments, but it's not until you take it to another level where you're like, oh, that was pretty crazy.
I know exactly that, and yeah, I've seen that in person. Um, with like, you certainly haven't reached the age of when we've seen some of our best marathon runners hit their straps. Um, but you are probably outside the box of what a lot of people would consider like prime athletic age. Have you noticed how your body is responding differently as you sort of get a little older?
um, well, I remember when I ran my first marathon at the age of 24, people were all saying 28 is peak age for marathon running. I think it was based on when Deke might have run a PB or something. So I
Yeah.
was like, oh, I got 4 years to get everything out of myself. And it's so funny now that you could probably add another 6 to 8 years onto that.
Yep.
But yeah, I've been, I guess, running in such a big time of change. So early in my career, the attitudes around fueling were really different. I think that I feel for the athletes who were kind of coming to the end of their career at that time, because it was more about, like, you've got to be of a particular body composition to be at your best. And there was just some really negative messaging out there. And I don't think that was good for people's like physical or mental health. So I was there through some of those years. And then without the shoes and the footwear, even just the gels we have now, I think I've been able to enjoy the advancements in like science and technology, and even just advice around the body comp and energy availability, that sort of stuff. So I feel like I've been able to gradually improve with age because of that. But perhaps if all of those developments hadn't have happened, I would have plateaued a lot earlier.
Yeah. Interesting. What about your growth as a runner yourself? Like, you learn your body as you go on. I guess you never stop learning your body.
Mm.
Um, Even now, like at my age, I'm learning how I best adapt to things. And are there some examples of
Yeah.
you having that lately?
Yeah, for sure. Like I start to get some calf and foot niggles, and I'm like, oh, I haven't been in the gym doing my weighted calf exercises. Like I've learned that that's something I just have to do. Running alone isn't good enough strengthening for my calves, and um, definitely the fueling. Like I didn't used to be very diligent with protein post session, and even after giving birth to Billy, I just for some reason was worried about protein when I was breastfeeding, like protein powder, and so I didn't take it, and I had more injuries. I think being more diligent with the post training fueling when I was pregnant and had a much higher appetite, I just got really used to eating before I'd exercise. So now I can eat quite a lot before I head out the door for a run, and it doesn't affect me. And I think that's really helped me as well to have energy for my sessions. And also hydrating. So I've learnt from just monitoring my hydration in the lead up to marathons that water alone doesn't hydrate me. I really need to add in electrolytes. I've had a few situations now where I'm like, I am drinking so much, but my urine analysis test in the morning keeps saying I'm dehydrated, particularly around travel. And adding in electrolytes makes a big difference.
Okay, cool. Well, with all this that you've learnt and how you've transitioned from sort of track athlete, cross country, up to the marathon,
I wouldn't say I was ever a track athlete. But I tried.
you ran on the orange circle.
I did,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm going to put you in the position of someone coming up. Let's say Amy Bunnage, one of our up and coming stars, right? And hypothetical, I haven't actually talked to Amy, but let's say she's got this like burning desire to be a marathoner. What do you think the ideal pathway is for a young athlete, a young lady athlete, female athlete coming up into the marathoning ranks? Because it's changed over the time.
Yeah. So I did my first marathon when I was 24, as I mentioned before. So I don't look back now and regret that. I don't think that was too early. So I think mid-20s is a fair time to make the transition, but I don't think you necessarily need the really high mileage training. I think it's quite nice to enjoy progress in the event, and if you were to go all in and have that feeling where you're barely able to get out of bed for your second run, like really draining yourself, I just don't know that that's the healthiest introduction to the event. I'd be more inclined to combine some running with cross training, perhaps even for your first one. Certainly expose yourself a lot to that marathon pace, practice your fueling, and then from there just keep turning the screws and making little adjustments. There are some people who have had a blinder of a debut, and then it puts so much pressure on them to keep improving from there. I almost feel like it's nice to have a bit of a soft launch and progress from there. Like even Jen, I think when she debuted in or on the Gold Coast, it seemed that she sort of trained and raced within her limits, and then was able to really push the envelope from there once she knew the event.
Yeah. No, that's a good point, actually. Very smart. Don't fear the event after a real bad first one.
Yeah, and I can see it might be difficult with timelines if there's an Olympic year right there and you want to get the qualifier. Sometimes there are pressures to just shoot for that qualifying time, but if you did have the time just to introduce the event on your own terms.
I've got a listener question for you here. Is the ideal strategy for an elite marathoner in terms of pacing to run the fastest time possible the same strategy that a middle to back of pack marathoner should have?
I would say it is. I mean, you need to know yourself again. Perhaps there are some people out there who it is best for them to bank time early and they get all excited and then they're motivated towards the end. But I think from a physiological perspective, it's generally to run the most even race possible. Or even, be able to kick down a bit at the end. But I've had some people say to me, I needed to make sure I had energy for that final sprint in the marathon. I'm like, oh, I don't ever think about saving energy for the final sprint. Like, you're just trying to basically know what you want to run, divide that into your K splits, and hit them as evenly as possible. But yeah, there will be some runners who perhaps mentally that's not their best approach.
Yep. Okay. Good answer. We'll move on to your sponsor, Lululemon. So how long have you been with Lulu for now?
Since the beginning of 2023.
Okay,
So 2 years.
2023. Yeah, very. I mean, it feels
a bit over 2 years. Yeah,
feels like a long time, but that hasn't been that long at all. Yeah. Have you found, like, being a Lulu athlete, like you might run into some roadblocks or some hurdles when it gets into the elite side of marathoning, in terms of like race contracts and not having a big industry sponsor?
In terms of getting into races, I've been working with Derek since 2012. Like, he was the one who helped me to get into my first ever Nagoya marathon, and I don't think my sponsors or affiliations have impacted that. It is really just my results. You have to get particular results to give yourself the best chance of getting into races. Where it feels a little bit different is when I travel around the world. I don't have necessarily a whole lot of other athletes that you feel are in your team. With some brands, you go to any race and you've all got the same kit and you feel like you're in this kind of broader team, whereas there aren't many Lululemon track and field or athletes or marathon runners where you rock up to a race and you're going to see X, Y, Z, and you'll all be wearing the same thing and feel like you're kind of in it together.
Yep. Yeah. And even like these days, I think a lot of the brands are putting on training camps for their athletes, houses to stay at, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, the beauty of Lululemon is they're so open to hearing what they can do to support you. So if I were to propose some of those ideas, I think they'd try to make it work. It's just more athlete driven.
Yeah, okay. And is that played? We know they have a racing shoe coming out. So have you played a big part in the design of that shoe and the testing?
Not a big part. I think my involvement will come in later in the year.
When you race in it, is that what you mean?
No, I think they're really understanding of me not making big changes because it's my tool of trade, so to speak. So I think it would be a case of, I'd imagine, maybe going to Canada and actually being involved with the global team and spending a couple of weeks being on the treadmills rather than sort of filling out a survey. I don't think that quite cuts it with a big, shoe development like that. So yeah, if there's the opportunity to do that down the track, it'd be cool. But it's obviously, again, a very big trip.
Yeah, a big trip for a mother of two. And Dylan, he's going well?
Yeah, he's getting back into training, and he's reluctantly sort of stepped up to the 1500. I think he enjoyed it at nationals, but for an 800 runner,
he did well.
Big step up.
Yep.
It was exciting to watch him, and there were so many good performances there, like James Hansen, and it was a cool nationals. You'll be on the Gold Coast because you'll be coming to this. You've got a shakeout run, no doubt. Yeah, I kind of missed it last year. Brady got it started and I just came in for basically the start of the run. So
he took over?
Well, I was coming back from my race and I think I got stuck in traffic. So I need a backup like Brady to help me out if I don't get there in time.
This year you'll be racing on the Goldie?
Yes.
Half marathon?
Half, yeah.
Nice, cool. That could be fun.
Yeah.
Be some people out there. PB territory?
I hope so. I'm making some adjustments to training off the back of, well, it's not really off the back of Launceston. Adam had always said we were in quite a general phase there, and then we'd get into more half marathon specific training ahead of Gold Coast. So yeah, there's only a few weeks left.
Yeah.
Which is pretty crazy, but
you got 2 weeks? 2 and a bit.
Yeah, exactly.
Not a lot you can do, is there?
No, jump on the track, do a few fours. I don't know. I hadn't done 400s in a very long time, and I did this treadmill test on Tuesday, and it didn't add up to a whole lot. Like, yes, I got very lactic, but my total mileage was like 5Ks for the session or something. So Adam took me out to the track for some fours, and I hadn't done a 400 on a track in years. It felt very foreign. And I had jelly legs from the treadmill.
You did a VO2 test or a lactate test?
Yeah, it was more for the lactates. Like, I wore the mask, but I don't know any of the results, and I haven't actually got the lactate results yet. But Adam just hinted to me afterwards that it kind of showed what he knew, that where my sort of sweet spot was for threshold work. So the idea was to just get a baseline that we can retest in a few months to see the effect of training.
Yeah, that's good. That's good that you're not like haven't gone and bought a lactate monitor, or do you use that at all?
Oh, Adam tried it for a little while. I think he found it really finicky, and it's a bit of an expense. And half the time, the results were really out of whack. I think he was so often trying to scramble to get it done in the short recovery time, and he just found that our feel is probably the best measure, so not to overcomplicate things.
Yeah, it actually sucks doing it in the field. Like you'll say, I've tried it before as well, and you finish a rep and you're so sweaty. Like it's so easy to corrupt the sample, and then you're like shaking because you sort of just like finished a hard rep, so you've got a bit of shake on, and
and then you can get blood everywhere if you don't, like, because you try to put a Band-Aid on it and it slips off with the sweat, and it can get pretty messy. I think actually Seth might have put up a video of it once where it got pretty messy.
Yeah, and you fuck one up, right? Or you get a bit of sweat in the test, and all of a sudden it says a crazy number. You're like, oh, I got to do it again now. Like there's another 45 seconds basically of testing, waiting. It seems a handful for a running workout for me.
Yeah. Particularly if you do know yourself pretty well, and it kind of tells you what you know anyway. What's the point?
Yeah. No, I get it. You get some heart rate values. Do you ever use heart rate on your training runs?
Oh, I generally just go with wrist-based, which I should use the chest strap or an arm strap. But again, my heart rate is generally pretty consistent with how I'm feeling. But yeah, when it comes to threshold work, when I get this data back from the test, I'll probably sort of keep an eye on my pace, knowing my zones, and then my feel rather than analysing my heart rate. I get quite frustrated with that lag in your heart rate rising, so you adjust your speed and you might overcompensate, and I find it quite stressful in the early reps when you're looking at your heart rate or the early part of a run.
Yep, fair enough. All right, well, I think that'll do us for a Saturday podcast. Jess, I'll let you go and put those kids, I can hear yelling, back to bed.
Yeah, I had an ice pack on Ellie's head before she fell off a chair. Oh. She's at that age where she's just climbing up everything.
That's funny. That's mum life. All right, well, thanks for joining us. Thanks to Lulu for giving us access to the South Australian record holder in the marathon.
You weren't nearly as hard on me as I was expecting. I thought
I forgot my best joke, Jess. My best joke at the start was when I listed all your results, I was going to say Jackson Trengro's brother. Sister.
Yeah, good joke.
Is this the most famous part of your life?
Jackson, you know that Jackson's not my relative. Jack's my brother. Jackson was another Port player. It was so confusing. So Jackson Trengove.
Okay, I'm confused.
So there was a Jackson Trengove who played for Port, and he went to Bulldogs. My brother Jack was at Melbourne and then went to Port.
Yes, that's the one I was talking about.
Yeah,
did I call him Jackson?
You called him Jackson. Jackson used to get into a bit of mischief, and he ended up. There are a few things in the paper, and people are like, oh, it's like your brother's been up to trouble, but
being naughty.
Anyway,
all
it's
right.
a bit of a joke.
Okay. Well, yeah. I butchered it anyway. I would have butchered it way worse.
Well, you said I was his brother for a start, so
Yeah, no, damn it. Put me under the bus. All right. Well, thank you, Jess, and we'll catch you on the Goldie.
Sounds good.
Thanks for tuning in to the weekend interview powered by Lululemon. Don't forget, if you're heading up to the Gold Coast Marathon, Lululemon are bringing together runners, crews and clubs for one of the biggest weekends on the Australian running calendar. Join them for final race prep, recovery sessions and post-race celebrations. You can register for the clubhouse via the link in our bio.
But here I stand, a man whose roots he understands, and I'm gonna hold my head up high. I was told as a young man, doesn't matter if you're white or black. Just show love to everyone you meet, doesn't matter if it don't come back. Undercover of my skin, I've heard all your names. If it's all the same, I'll keep on walking. Undercover of my skin, I've heard all your names. If it's all the same, I'll keep on walking. I keep holding on to the hope that all the suffering was for something. Something for something, something for something. When it's said and done, all your words and all your hate don't mean nothing. Don't mean nothing. Don't mean nothing. Of my skin, I've heard all your names. If it's all the same, I'll keep on walking. Undercover